You might recognize this little vise. This is my contour grip adaptive jaw vise that I restored a couple of months ago. It uses little individual teeth and a very ingenious ball bearing design to really mold around anything that you might want to grab. It's a great vise, but it's only got 2-inch wide jaws. I've always wanted a bigger one, and luckily I found one. My friend Taras at Tarmec on Instagram picked this up at an auction and was kind enough to sell it to me and ship it to New York so I could restore it and put it into use. This is an absolutely huge 6-inch wide jaw version of the same vise, and it is going to be awesome to have it in the shop. So let's get into the restoration. The first thing I've got to do is take off the cover that exposes the teeth and the well where the ball bearings are supposed to be. If you're not familiar with this type of vise and you didn't see my other video where I restored the other one, stay tuned to see how this mechanism actually works. To start the cleaning process, I'm going to be using the WD-40 Specialist Degreaser and Cleaner Easy Pods. You basically drop these two little pods into a spray bottle with water, 1 pod for a lower concentration and 2 pods for a higher concentration. Let it sit while they dissolve, shake it up, and you've got an awesome degreaser to help clean up all that rust, gunk, and junk that might be lingering inside this old vise. So I have to clean out these reservoirs so I can eventually fill them with ball bearings. But first I have to get these shims in order and actually figure out how much ball bearing I'm going to need in order to have these jaws function properly. Now this is a really genius design, and before I got my first one of these, I had no idea how a vise like this would work. The shims just basically reduce the surface area between the teeth and allow them to move more freely. And you can see a little set screw that I'm adjusting here on the edge that would allow you to lock the jaws in a very specific place if you were grabbing the same irregularly shaped object multiple times. Now the vise came with a bunch of shims, but they're in pretty rough shape. We're just going to use them for sort of this test and to kind of put the vise together in this preliminary stage. And then I'll go ahead and wind up making some new shims later on in the video. So basically you can get the idea of how this works here. You've got these little teeth that can be moved inward towards the back of the jaw, and then there's a cam that pushes them back forward. Now I ordered these 1/8-inch stainless steel ball bearings on Amazon, and I bought more than I needed. I ordered these before I actually had the vise, and based on its scale, I thought that the reservoir was going to be huge. So I got 20,000 1/8-inch balls. I probably needed 1/4 of that. But you want there to be some room inside this area behind the jaws, because the more room you leave, the more the jaws will be able to move before they basically bottom out. What happens is those balls move from one side of the jaw reservoir to the other, and they basically make it so that all the jaws aren't constantly moving and loose, and they lock into place underneath basically their own tension using almost a fluid dynamics style system. Now there's this really inconvenient pin that goes from the top plate into that sort of back retaining wall, and eventually I'm actually going to take that out completely because it makes disassembling the vise really difficult, because as you lift off the top plate, all the ball bearings have nowhere to go. Since disassembling these is something I've done a few times, I've developed a pretty good system using a magnet and a little plastic bag to sort of get all the balls out easily and put them in the reservoir so I don't lose too many in this little cup. Now you can see sort of the cam that I'm going to be moving as well. Now that was the fixed jaw I was working on, so now I'm going to take apart the dynamic jaw, the moving jaw, which also has no balls in it. Now, when my friend Taras bought this, it did have a random assortment of large and small ball bearings, but he took them out in advance, which made it just that much easier for me to deal with this thing. So I'm not upset that I don't have the original balls or any of the old stuff that was in there, because it had definitely been changed out. I want to disassemble this vise down to all of its main components, and I have to get these little cam levers off. This one has a pin that's holding it in place, and I'm having some trouble removing it. So I go ahead and I Dremel out sort of the top of it to try to get my punch in there and give myself a little well to get a drill bit and drill the pin out. I want up basically drilling through the whole thing, and then I can essentially just knock the cam shaft off using a punch. I'm using a brass hammer and brass punches when I can, so I don't damage anything. Again, I'm using some degreaser to just sort of clean things up as I go. Overall, this vise isn't in terrible shape, and all of the sort of defects on it seem to just really be at the surface level. There's really no heavy pitting or rust. It's basically just really dirty and needs a good wire wheeling and some grease and oil, and this thing is going to be good as new. Now, the way the dynamic jaw stays on sort of the track is with these two plates that bolt to the bottom. And then there's this interesting sort of collar that goes over the threads. And I believe that that's there to avoid any chips landing on the threads, which could eventually gall them up and make it so that the vise doesn't function properly. Getting the actual screw box out of this vise was interesting, as I expected it to be bolted to the bottom of the dynamic jaw, but in reality, it's all cast one piece, which is something that you rarely would see because it's just such a hard part to make. This vise was made by the American Positive Grip Vise Company in Wilmington, Massachusetts. The original patent on this vise is something that I've seen before, and this being the second one, and only the second one I've ever seen, but the second one that I own, this is exactly the same, just on a larger scale for the most part, as that little tiny contour grip vise that I showed earlier in the video. The difference in the contour grip vise is that the screw box is actually bolted to the bottom of the dynamic jaw, if I remember correctly. And this one, you've actually got to remove the entire lead screw in order to get this thing off. The entire vise base is cast in one piece. It's got a lot of interesting and nicely cast and machined pieces. And then you take off this little C-clip on the end. You can basically bang out the lead screw, or the kind of vise screw. And then by backing out the screw itself into the dynamic jaw, the whole thing will sort of release. Now, the tolerance on this to the actual vise was very tight. I think was really mainly just grease and grime. So with a little bit of persuasion with a punch and a brass hammer, I was able to get this thing to move enough that by kind of unscrewing it, it would use some leverage and push itself out. Then I could go ahead and pull that screw box out. The threads in this are impeccable. They're in perfect shape. And I think partially because of that sort of cover, that sleeve tube cover, keeps any metal chips from landing on the threads and then eventually getting to the screw box and being sort of forced through and damaging those threads with the debris. Now this thing is totally disassembled, it's time to take it over to the downdraft table, give it a good wire wheeling. Now I'm using a variable speed angle grinder to do this, and some high quality wire wheels from my friends over at Pferd Abrasives, and this makes all the difference. I'm using a combination of stiff wheels, loose wheels, and then this little 1/4-inch shaft, kind of little fan wheel, to really get into all the nooks and crannies and clean this thing up as best I can. Now you notice I'm working on a downdraft table, which I really enjoy having in my metal shop, and if you do any amount of metal work or woodwork, I suggest you look into getting one. I bought this one used, it was a couple $100, but it really helps me feel like I'm protecting my lungs and protecting my shop from all this dust and debris that's coming out as I'm wire wheeling and grinding parts. I'm also wearing a powered respirator, which is going to help me keep my lungs clean as well. Now I'm using a little bit of a unique tool for this application, which is a magnetic chuck. Now I know some machinists out there are crying and losing their minds over this because I'm wire wheeling on a precision instrument. This is a Brown & Sharp magnetic chuck, but I got this from a machine shop and I was told it was completely out of spec and couldn't be used on their surface grinder, so I took it home and I've been using it as a grinding chuck ever since. What's nice about this is that I can just basically magnetize metal parts right to the base, right to the face of it, and then I can do whatever grinding I need to do without having to worry about the pieces going flying. Now it doesn't always get a perfect grab, you can see those parts moving around a little bit, but it's so much easier than clamping things in the vise. And then when I need to work on a shaft like this, I just magnetize some V-blocks to it, and I can essentially use it as like a bench center so that I can go ahead and clean round parts and shafts like this screw. Working on sort of the end plate, I can also use the magnetic chuck to keep it down to the table there as well. It's very, very heavy, so it doesn't move at all when I'm working with it, and it works great on the downdraft table to keep my parts from flying around. You'll also notice that I've got a really nice leather apron on. This is from my friend over at Calavera Tool. Check him out and check out his stuff. It's a handmade leather apron, and I really feel like it's helpful in protecting me from those rogue wires that fly out of my wire wheel, keeps them out of my clothes, and keeps me from bringing them home. The process of wire wheeling all this stuff took a couple hours, but overall I think it was worth doing. Every part becomes basically immaculately clean, and it even removes sort of the dust and grime that might be left behind when you do a wire wheeling operation like this. With the variable speed angle grinder, you really keep the wires flying out to a bare minimum, and also using a high quality wire wheel helps a lot. The next thing to do was to prepare this whole thing for paint and primer. So I'm going to go ahead and mask off any of the machined areas and clean out any of the drilled or threaded areas with some little wire wheel on the end of my drill. The masking process takes quite a while to really get everything nice and protected, especially because this thing still is a little greasy, so things aren't sticking very well to it. But overall, it's worth doing. Masking is one of those things that while you're doing it, you think, is this really necessary? But then when you're done and you get to peel it off, it's super satisfying, and then you don't have to go back and, chip any paint away. You don't have to worry about your tolerances, so it's worth doing. Personally, I like using this green frog tape over the blue or the inexpensive blue painter's tape. The good stuff is kind of worth it. The frog tape always sticks pretty well, and you can get it in 4-packs on Amazon for a pretty cheap price. So I basically mask everything off, get everything nice and covered up, including that little spacer block that you saw earlier. That's essentially a parallel that someone made, and I'm going to show you how that kind of works later. I'm using a self-etching primer, but I don't need to paint the bottom of the vise, which is machined. I want it to be nice and flat. And then I'm going to go ahead and just use this to prime everything before I go ahead and give it a coat of paint. I can kind of use the vise itself as a little bit of a stand, and I blocked off any of the threads with some paper towel before I give this a pretty liberal coat of the self-etching primer. Now I gave that primer a pretty long time to dry, and the next day I went ahead and painted it with some hammered black spray paint. Now there was a little bit of the original paint on there. It was sort of like a metallic green, mint green paint color, but I couldn't find that locally, so I decided to go with this hammered paint just to sort of give it a little bit of texture and also kind of a unique look. Once all that paint was completely dry, I could start peeling off the masking. This is probably the most satisfying part of the whole process. Everything stayed super clean. I didn't get any paint where I didn't want it. And then this thing can start to become assembled. One of the things I noticed was that the dynamic jaw was having a little bit of trouble getting to the very end of the ways. So I wanted that to be super smooth all the way to the end. So I took a very fine file, a Pferd German-made file, and I just very gently kind of ground away a little bit on those edges. It didn't need much, didn't need to take the angle grinder to it, and it was working perfect. The next thing I did was I grabbed a surface conditioning belt over on the 2x72 grinder, and I gave the screw shaft a little bit of a tune-up, just sort of taking down any high spots, and then I could also work on the cams and make sure that those had a really nice tolerance and a really nice fit inside of the jaws. Everything was pretty tight on this, but I don't think it was tight from a proper machine fit. I think it was tight from dirt and grime and maybe some debris that got wedged in there. So loosening everything up, making sure everything moves nice and freely was my priority. And after just a little bit of work with that surface conditioning belt, everything's moving nice. I'm also going to be using some WD-40 Specialist gel lubricant to kind of spray inside any of those areas where the cam's going to be, just to make sure everything's moving around really nicely. And I'll use some different grease on the actual screw shaft itself, but overall that gel lube works really well to get into sort of those tight to reach places. Once I get that screw back on there, I can go ahead and re-add the C-clip, and then the vise is functioning again from its forward and backwards motion. And now it's time to sort of reassemble that faceplate. What that faceplate allows you to do, and I didn't really realize this when I first took this whole thing apart, was that the faceplate allows you to actually move the static jaw in if you need it to be closer to the center of the vise. Basically, there's two large bolts that bolt through the frame that hold the faceplate in, and then there are two threaded holes in the faceplate that can push the static jaw forward kind of towards the center of the vise a little bit if you need it to go that way. If I wanted to grab closer to the middle, I could just basically use those bolts and push out those jaws and they wouldn't move at all. Adding these sort of slot plates on the bottom is pretty easy. I actually was surprised how tight I could make them and still have good movement, which just shows that this thing was machined properly and it didn't need any shims. That was pretty nice. And then you can see how I have those two Allen key screws sticking out the back, and I'm not putting any real pressure on that static jaw to move further forward. I'm happy where it is there, and it's going to allow me basically the full range of motion of the vise and allow me to grab the largest part possible in this thing. Now I can take the masking off the top plate and see how everything fits. You'll notice that I'm not re-adding that little pin that locks the top plate to that back plate. There is a keyway cut in both the vise and the actual top plate. So I don't really see a reason to have that pin in there, and it does make disassembling the vise extremely inconvenient. Everything is moving super smoothly, and now I can start to place the jaws. So you can see the shims that exist there, and they basically are going between not every single jaw, but every other. I do 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. These little shims are basically just made out of hardened steel, and I have an assortment of them. In this case, on this side, they were all in pretty good shape. And you can sort of see the motion that I'm going for here. Basically, by pushing the cam forward, it brings the little teeth back in place, and when the teeth move back, you can just sort of use the cam to get them back in the correct position. I still have my little cup full of ball bearings from before, and I add some 3-in-1 oil because 3-in-1 oil will always stay viscous and doesn't get sticky. A lot of oils, if you let them sit out for a while, they become sticky, and in this case, I want this to be as fluid as possible, so I wanted some nice thin oil that would stay in there and keep from going bad and keep everything moving nice and smoothly long term. Once I've got the teeth and the ball bearing set, I can put the top plate on and just sort of check the motion and check the action of all the teeth. Now it takes a little bit of adjusting, so I tap it around with a brass hammer and just make sure none of the shims are binding or anything like that. Once I get nice and smooth motion, I can add the other bolts back in. With that done, I can go ahead and move to the moving jaw, and it's kind of the same process here. The only difference is at this point I've realized that the shims I have left are in really bad shape, so I start putting the teeth back in, and then you'll notice that I have to start making some new shims. Now the cam design is interesting because it only allows the teeth to move forward a certain distance and then resets them into their original position when it moves them back. The shims have to be cut to correspond with the teeth, and I'm just using some 0.010 hardened steel shim stock to make these shims. I thought I'd only need 1 or 2, but in the end I wound up making 6 or 7. It was a little bit of a laborious process, and in the end I really could have set this up on the water jet and cut them out really quickly and precisely, but it was easy enough to do them with these little aviation shears, and once that was done I could go ahead and add my oil and my ball bearings. I'm sort of making a bath for the ball bearings to sit in, and from what I've seen in my other vices, these usually stay pretty well. The oil will coat all the different balls and they won't be able to really drip out, and it'll keep everything moving really nicely. Again, adjusting things with a little brass hammer, and there is a little gap between the second and third tooth on that jaw, kind of closest to where the camera is, and it was bothering me, but not enough for me to go ahead and redo this whole thing. What's nice about this is even when those Allen key bolts are really tight on the top plate, the jaws still work perfectly. Everything is machined just to the right tolerance so that things are functional but also tight. And now you can see this thing in action. Just grab the socket, now it's grabbing the irregularity of a ball peen hammer. I'm adding a little bit more oil, and this is really just an amazing vise. Nothing else in my shop could grab these irregular shapes like this, and here you can see that parallel, which is really only used for much larger pieces of work. Tell me what other vise that you have that can grab a socket wrench like this, hold it in place tightly so that you could work on it. These vices are absolutely amazing if you come across one in the wild. Don't buy it, but send it to me and then I'll buy it. No, I'm just kidding. If you find one, you should get it. Here we've got a perfect example of a vise like this being super useful. Grabbing a rough forged hammerhead that I made with my friend Paul Pinto, each tooth kind of grabbing its little contour, holding it exactly where I would want it to go. And then by releasing the vise, I can just pop that hammer out, I can flip the cams, and the teeth will go right back into their normal position, and I can get this thing mounted on the bench. Super happy with this thing, excited to have it, and thanks for watching this video.